Back once again, Paul Hobbs Winery, one of the finest in the world. So we're talking about how you can see them on the vine and the weather and all. You know that the potential for a really outstanding year is there this year. When you get them in the barn door, so to speak, what can happen there to either clinch that for you or to make things go in a different direction?
Well, there's a lot of pitfalls, but at least we have control at that point, or theoretically we have control. But anything can happen. A bacteria can enter the fermentation and cause the wine to start converting to vinegar, for example. And it can turn very expensive fruit, $10,000 a ton or more, I mean, into nothing. So that's a very scary process. And we just have to be very rigorous and very mindful of all the possible pitfalls. But as long as we follow a very good technique, almost like a hospital, and so maybe my partial doctor training is coming in handy here. But, you know, it's almost like that, where we have to be very, very precise in what we do, and yet there's an art to it as well.
What's the first thing you do when you bring the grapes in from the field? What happens?
The very first thing that happens, the grapes are picked often at night, and we bring them in. They're hand-picked, and we bring them in, and we sort them across the table and destem for red grapes.
Done by hand?
It's all done by, the machine is, we use a machine to take the stem off, and then we sort both before that process and after we berry sort. And then those berries for reds go into a fermentation tank where they rest for 5 to 6 days. Just like taking a tea bag and putting it into water that's cold. So there's really what we call cold extraction. Now on the white sides, when we're making Chardonnay, those grapes are picked whole cluster and then put in the press very cold. When I mean cold is, let's say, somewhere between 50 degrees, 52 degrees. So we try to pick at night, so they come in like that, very cold. And then we extract the juice through the press, capture that juice in a stainless steel tank, and then move it into French oak barrels for fermentation.
Why French oak barrels? What's so, you mentioned them earlier, and yes. I know from a variety of different types of liquor that also has a special significance. But what in wine makes French oak especially important? Well,
in my mind, and there's more disagreement over this today, French oak is still the superior oak for subtlety and yet adding complexity to the wine. So in the case of American oak, which has been improved in terms of the way the barrel is made and coopered, because it used to be coopered primarily for whiskey, so that meant it was shaped by steam. Today it's shaped by fire for wine, and that gives more toasting into the barrel, which gives you more of a nice toasty vanilla flavor into the wine. So that's, the American oak has come much better. It used to have like a dill-like flavor, dillweed flavor, but today it has a lot of vanilla and richness to the wine. Nevertheless, the French oak still seems to be superior, particularly in the case of white wines and Burgundian-style wines.
What happens after you get them in the barrel?
Fermentation. In the case of whites, the fermentation, we do a native fermentation. That means we don't add yeast. We don't actually add anything to the juice. So we're doing, in the vineyard, we're doing organic farming, and in the winery, we're not adding any component to the must, what we call must or juice. And in this case, the fermentation takes 5 or 6, 7, 8 days to initiate, and that it may take a whole month up to 10 months to ferment through two phases of fermentation. One primary fermentation is the alcoholic fermentation, and then there's a secondary fermentation that converts an acid to a softer acid, apple acid to milk acid, and that softens the wine still further.
When you put them in the bottle, you know, we always hear, you have to let that one sit for 2 years, 5 years. This one should be drunk almost immediately. This one you have to wait. Do you know how long? At the beginning, do you have a sense of how long you need to let that sit before you actually drink it?
I think I do now. But it's taken years to develop experience of tasting and seeing wines at their various stages to really have a sense of what it might do.
And it's not a one-size-fits-all sort of thing, right?
That is correct.
And what's the variable there? Why would some need longer and some be ready sooner?
There's really to simplify, really two reasons, I think. One is the acidity of the wine, more acid, longer ageability. And a second variable is the tannin, what the pull on your cheeks that you feel. In a red wine, of course, you have a lot of tannin. And there can be even a third characteristic, and that is sugar. If there's a high sugar content, in the case of my bottle of Chateau Yquem, 1962, or I'm working in Hungary on Tokaj wines today and making 6 Petonios and so on, those wines will age almost indefinitely, it seems, 100 years, and they'll still be in very good shape.
100 years, my goodness.
High sugar and moderate levels of alcohol.
So they'll be somewhere out there with this signal going out to space, maybe a century from now. People will be cracking up one of those bottles and reflecting on.
Well past me.
Yeah. What's the favorite wine that you've ever made that you've enjoyed yourself personally?
That I've ever made?
Yeah.
It could be the wine that Robert Parker scored 100 points. That was the 2002 Beckstoffer Tokelon Vineyard Cabernet. And that was a beautiful wine right from the very beginning. It was beautiful in the vineyard. The grapes, the clusters, the size of the berry, everything was so beautiful. And then the wines and the fermentation and the richness of the tannin. So I think that's my all-time favorite for my own.
And from a business standpoint, getting it out there, getting yourself the name, how did that happen?
That's a question that I don't know. You know, part of it is people do it for you, I guess. They taste your wines, and that's what's great.
Word of mouth, ultimately?
Yeah, so much of it is word of mouth. Some of it, of course, is the press, and that's very, very important. But then there's a lot of aficionados and just enthusiasts, and they champion. If they like what you're doing, they're your champions. So I mean,
it's really a lifestyle in many ways, isn't it? People
it really is.
adore the product and also the style and the living quality that goes with it.
It's so true. I know people that have changed careers to live this lifestyle, very successful careers.
Do they have to have the background that you've had? Because it strikes me that most of them won't, right?
Most of them don't, and that's what makes them maybe even gutsier than me, than what I've done. I found it very intimidating to enter the industry when I was a young man in my mid-20s. It was very intimidating because of all the hype. But, you know, in a way, it's not that bad in the sense that people today are very friendly. It's not shrouded in some of the, you know, mystique
mystery,
and the mystery that used to be.
Well, and you've helped to demonstrate that it can be done, that with the right education and the right talent and a real sense of joy about it, that you can make it work. We have to leave it there, but we thank you so much for coming on in, and thank you
Michael,
for the wine. Paul Hobbs Winery. We'll leave it there for now and see you next time. Thanks for watching.